go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the third evening of the mayor's proposed budget hearings, the joint hearings between the mayor's administration and the York City Council. I just want to quick read a few things for you here. The mayor's budget hearings and city council are conducted pursuant to the codified ordinances of the city of York, Pennsylvania, specifically the Administrative Code 137.05A provides the city budget shall be prepared annually by the mayor with the assistance of the business administrator. In order to prepare the budget, the mayor shall require all department heads to submit requests for appropriations to him and to appear before him or such other officer here designates at a public hearing on such requests. The city clerk shall also appear at such hearing and submit for incorporation into the budget the request for appropriations for the council, which we heard on Tuesday evening. This proceeding is a hearing, not a meeting. The distinction is significant for the process. A meeting is a gathering of interested persons for the purpose of discussion of matters of interest, such as a town meeting. In a more formal sense, a meeting is a gathering of a constituted body for the purpose of transacting business, as in the regular meetings of city council for the purpose of adopting ordinances and passing resolutions to guide the business of the city. A hearing is a formal proceeding for the purpose of a fact-finding to gather information to aid in decision-making. The information is gathered by the process of taking testimony. A hearing is not a forum for free-flowing discussion. So while we will take questions from the budget team, council members, and the public, it is not meant to be a continuous back and forth discussion. And as I mentioned, the hearing will proceed with presentations by the fire chief and by actually police chief first, I believe, and fire chief, the police commissioner, I apologize, and Captain Leitzel, and then to be followed by Chief Dearden. Next will be questions by the mayor, then questions by the budget team, then questions by council members, and then questions by members of the community. Before we started, I just wanted to share one thing that I hadn't shared in the last two evenings, and that was the impact that we are expecting to see from COVID. As we know, we're seeing about a $3 million loss in revenue due to COVID-19. And in the 2021 budget, there's an expectation that we will lose approximately $320,000 of previous revenue from earned income tax. We will lose approximately $370,000 from the distressed earned income tax. We will lose approximately $120,000 from our local services tax. And these are all basically due to unemployment levels that are now higher in the city of York because of COVID. We will also expect to lose $660,000 in business and mercantile taxes, and $200,000 in parking fines, and $150,000 in additional revenue fines due to the closure of magistrates and in the deprioritization by the magistrates of certain types of fines and infractions. So as we take these very painful steps in this budget, I want everybody to understand the financial impact of COVID. We have an expectation of 350, 1 million, approximately $2 million in revenue that we received in previous years that we will not be receiving in the upcoming year. Hopefully things will be better and we will receive some of that revenue, but we cannot budget for such things when, as we know, the pandemic continues and is currently worse than it has been since the beginning in March. So with that, let's get started. Tonight, we will not be here for 3.5 hours, right, everybody? We'll be here, I believe tonight we'll go pretty briefly or pretty quickly. And with that, Commissioner Muldrow and Captain Leitzel, you're up.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So thank you for having us. So We'll be going over our items briefly, and then afterwards, if anybody has any questions of myself and Captain Leitzel, who is our in-house finance expert, and we will be able to entertain those questions if anybody has any.
All right, so how would you guys like us to go through this? Are you wanting us to go over the storyline that's kind of prepared?
Yeah, please share with the elected officials and the community the overview that you have provided. Talk a little bit about the department briefly, and then that provide for us just any kind of outstanding changes that you expect or that you have submitted for the budget.
All right, so we'll start off just by talking about a few of our accomplishments over 2020. As you know, gun violence has been a significant issue in the city of York, and it's something that the York City Police Department is taking very seriously. We started in 2017 with the introduction of GVI, the Gun Violence Initiative. And over the course of the past 3 to 4 years, we have been consistently and constantly updating and restructuring that process of the initiative. And even moving to 2020, again, constantly evaluating, our successes and our failures, and looking at ways that we can make us better at doing what we do. And moving through 2020, as we got towards the end of this year, and with Commissioner Muldrow coming on board, we took another look at it and made some additional changes to the plan that I think is going to move us into 2021, setting our best foot forward, putting the right people in the right places, expanding on our outreach capabilities. So I'm very optimistic that we are going to continue to move in a positive direction. In addition to that, we dealt in 2020, obviously, as everybody else did, with a number of issues regarding both COVID-19, as well as some instances of civil disobedience and demonstrations that occurred not only in our city, but around the country. We fortunately didn't really have to react much as a police department in regard to the civil disobedience. Our demonstrations were very peaceful, and overall, it couldn't have gone better. But that doesn't mean that as a police department, we didn't have to prepare for the worst. And we did that. And we were very prepared moving through all of those instances to where we would have been able to respond had the need arose. And again, as I said, those needs did not arise. Our residents and population here in the city were just fantastic. So nothing bad to say about that. Some additional accomplishments, we're continually evaluating our processes in-house and looking at ways that we can become more efficient and more effective. And some of the things that we always look at, of course, are introduction of new technology. And 2 new technology pieces that we're bringing into the police department in 2020 include CODI records management system. We're moving to a new system of records management that is extremely powerful, and we're just actually implementing that now. We expect to go live with that here in early December, and should be fully up and running by early January. In addition to that, we're also introducing a program called Benchmark Analytics. It is, I guess I could best describe it as kind of a one-stop shop for a lot of paperwork and data collection. We'll be able to use it for our disciplinary process, for taking complaints, for crash investigations. It's a kind of an overall gathering point where our supervisors and command staff can look at an employee and see everything about that employee in one spot. And as the program begins its data collection based on the input that we're providing, it'll start to provide some analytics as far as looking at potential problems and giving us the opportunity to head off those problems before they actually become a significant problem. So we're very excited to get that moving. And lastly, we're, like I said before, as far as the restructuring of GVI, we're always looking at ways to improve given what we have, doing more with the resources that are available to us. And some of those moves that we made here late in 2020 just simply were putting the right people in the right places. And I really am having some positive thoughts about some of the changes we made. And I think overall it's going to make us a much better department.
So as we look to the future, like he said, we're optimistic about the work that we're able to get done, but we also are focusing on a renewed emphasis on respect with our citizenry, service, and providing high quality levels all throughout the department from all phases. Evaluating some of the things that we have to deal with and the circumstances that we deal with here inside of the department. we want people to understand, and I want people to know that this is a department that maybe unlike some of the neighboring areas that we're fielding 54,000 calls a year. 54,000 calls equals about 145 calls a day. So like Captain Leitzel said, we're really looking at ways that we can continue to utilize the resources that we currently have and be able to get that work done and try to get that work done in a better way, a way that supports the community even more so than we've done in years past. We want to have a continued focus on outreach and really building the brand that is the York City Police Department. And we've tried to do that by focusing on morale on the inside so that our officers feel respected and they feel supported so that they carry that same level of respect with them when they go on each and every call and serve on those calls in the same way that they would want their family and their friends to be serviced when they're responding to issues. And we understand that it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. The call volume is high. We ask a lot of our officers, but they continue to be up to the task, and we try to make do with what we have. You're going to see a lot of initiatives, a lot of programming, a lot of outreach strategies coming from this department here moving forward that we're really proud of and excited about. Some of those things that'll be occurring through our community services division and the nuts and bolts that everybody wants to know with respect to crime and some of the incidents that are occurring right now throughout the city. We have that third leg of what we do here in the department, our enforcement piece through the Detective Bureau and the GVI enforcement officers that are on the street that will be continuing to focus and fight to make a dent with street crime and violence and some of the shootings that we've been dealing with in the neighborhoods. And they've been doing an excellent job bringing those guns in and responding to those shooters. So we're going to continue with the plan that we have in place. We're going to look to make tweaks and changes as needed along the way and try to really find ways to make our officers even more efficient than they already are and get them on the street, have them on the street more visible and provide that deterrence that we need in the community and really focus on neighborhood safety. So we're excited about where we're going. We're proud of what guys have been able to accomplish along the way. And with a renewed focus on our department and branding, we hope that will hypercharge the community and really help us recruit and bring in the next wave of our officers that will be coming in from our community and taking on the challenge of serving this community. So stick around for what comes next, and we're excited to be here.
Thank you. Items from the budget. I see a couple of things that have changed. You prepared to share with us the changes in your budget here?
Is that, are we speaking on that, or did you say the budget team is speaking on that? I'm sorry, Mayor.
I'm sorry, Captain Leitzel, this is your budget. You're going to,
All right, so
I think first, significant reduction in charges for services is the first thing that pops up. Seeing a $600,000 reduction in revenues would be something that we could use some explanation.
okay, just give me a moment here. I'm trying to get my screen where I can see it a little easier. Okay, some of the more significant losses in revenues actually, the charges for services as far as false alarm fees, that isn't really something that we are directly controlling. We're looking at what we've seen over the past few years and trying to make a best guess as far as what it would be, moving forward into 2021. I think what's probably a little more alarming to me would be some of our loss of revenue in regard to a big one that we lost was the contract that we have with York College. There we were contracted to provide some police services down there in the form of manpower directly in and around the college. And that was $150,000 that we are not going to have moving forward into 2021, largely due to COVID. With the college not really having as much activity on the streets down there because of the disease, they didn't have a need to have officers directly assigned to that area. So that was a big one for us that we lost. Does the budget team or Mayor, do you have any specific questions about any of the other specific revenue items?
Well, I guess what I'm seeing is the major reduction for services rendered, and I can imagine myself that this is due to a reduction in staff, that we are going to potentially have a reduction in overtime. Is that what I'm seeing there? Reduction, I should say, in what do you call that? The external overtime, where we're supporting other organizations that need us and pay us for support.
Yeah. So at the same time, that revenue comes in, but it's a direct result of hours worked and expenses paid for the officers working those overtime assignments. So when we have, for example, for a large portion of, not a large portion, but for several months of 2020, we had canceled all contracted overtime services to York Hospital, to the Village of York. So that revenue wasn't coming in, but at the same time, the expenses weren't going out to pay the officers for that overtime worked. The only other big one that I said that we were definitely losing was the York College. The other stuff was really, a large portion of it in 2020 was based on the COVID and its effect on the amount of time worked, basically. And then the reflection of that would have been the revenue coming in to reimburse for that overtime. What is this one? I'm not sure that reimbursement for services rendered. Kim, can you explain that one?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll pull up your budget and hopefully you have the explanation on your budget. I'm assuming that's where the York College money went.
And then if that's the case, Kim, is the contributions and donations the fact that we don't have WellSpan's contribution in writing at this time?
I believe so, but Tom or Sheree should be able to confirm. Okay. Let me. Just waiting for internet to get caught up here. All right, specifically what's left in there is what we expect to get from the school district for the school resource officer. I can do a quick check back at the 2020 budget to see if the your college money is put in there as another expense from 2020.
I was just able to get into our budget screen. I'm a little confused as to why it was showing a 2020. I'm having trouble getting back to it. The correct amount there is 89,000, and that's services rendered is for the services that we provide York City School District. I'm not sure that 205.
The rest of the services rendered, this is a summary of all of them. The rest of it is the crossing guard, would have been the crossing guard from last year.
Which would have been a lot.
Which that would be our reimbursement from the school district for their portion of it. We'll have to look because I believe something should be in there, correct, Tom?
Yes.
So we'll add a little revenue back for you for that.
Yeah, I don't believe we have anything there.
Yeah,
And
'cause they
we
didn't
still
work.
have the contract with the York City School District for the
Right.
school resource officer.
So that'll show a combination of the contract with the SRO for the school district and the school district's contractual reimbursement for the cost of the crossing guards. So we'll add that, make note and add that amount for the proposed budget.
Okay.
And that 150,000, I'm almost positive is the York College contract, because that was the amount, I believe, of the contract.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, so yeah, if you'd like to go through the expenses at this point.
Okay, just give me one moment. Okay, so starting at the top, salaries and wages, you're going to see a significant decrease going from 2020 to 2021. We are going from a sworn budgeted amount of 100 officers down to 91. And there you will see we're moving down from 8,595,000 down to 8,288,000. That's the reason for that decrease. That salary and wages does include our sworn officers as well as our civilian officers, full-time civilian officers, not officers, but civilian employees. And in addition to cutting the 9 sworn officers, we're also looking at a cut of 2 of our full-time civilians. Under part-time employees, you'll see a reduction from 86,507 down to 21,154. We are going to be cutting all of our part-time employees except for a part-time camera IT tech position. But that's a significant cut because the majority of those part-time employees include our community outreach personnel that work in the police substations. Police overtime,
Captain Lightfoot, can you just jump back there a second? I'm trying to figure out the numbers on this. A reduction of less than $900,000 of less than $300,000 for 9 police officers. Can those numbers be right?
Well, you got to remember that you're removing the 9, but all the other officers receive pay increases. So I can double check the numbers, but that would most likely cause the difference. You're looking like between the 1 and wanting to see a reduction of 9 officers from the 2020 budget, and that would be more of a significant decrease than 9 coming out of the 21 budget compared to the 100 that was in the 2020 budget.
Thank you. And just for the benefit of everyone, we will be applying for the Federal Department of Justice COPS grant, which is a grant that would provide 5 additional police officers funded by the federal government. So there is a reduction of 9 here, but we are looking to replace 5 of those 9 with funding from the federal government. And that is not included because we do not have the grant in hand at this time.
okay, so moving on, the overtime that you see there is just for our non-reimbursed overtime. And that would include like shift shortages, court appearances, anytime we call in additional officers for investigative purposes. We have historically, we've been at about $540,000, and you'll see an increase from $540,000 up to $556,000. I based that estimation just on our contractual salary raise. The reason why the projected and amended 2020 budget is significantly lower was again due to COVID, because for that 3 or 4 months, we just didn't have, believe it or not, crime actually reduced quite a bit over that time period. And we didn't have a need to be paying investigators to be in here on overtime. Shift differential is something that was calculated by the budget team. Specialty pay is a contractual amount that is paid for our people that have officers within the police department that have college degrees. In addition to that, there's a small amount of that total that is paid for our firearms instructors. They get a small $100 stipend each year for those services. Reimbursable overtime, $365,650 was our expected rate in 2020. Again, I put an increase in there just based on our contractual raise. Go ahead.
Just anything significant.
Okay.
Captain, let me step in real quick, and I'll do my spiel about why there's 0 numbers under these allocations and why the allocations further down are lower. We started using a new budgeting system this year, which was a godsend considering the situation with our IT infrastructure going down would have completely stalled our budget process if it wasn't for this. Part of this is this has a module for workforce, which allows us to more accurately calculate the full compensation associated, the total compensation associated with positions by position. So being able to do that, we were able to connect items like the pension and unemployment, workers' comp, and the life insurance, the basic life that we policies that we have, and connect them directly to the positions, as opposed to in the past, those were a part of and are paid out of our risk management budget. So they were part of the allocation down here for insurance. So you'll see that along with the health insurance allocation at the top, that's what was taken out of, was part of insurance allocations last year, but this year it is up here and split out. What is left in insurance allocation is police professional insurance and other general liability insurance, vehicle insurance. The other thing that shouldn't see a significant difference, but slightly, is some of the other things like business administration. I believe police pension always came directly out of your budget, so it's not like our officers and employee pension that came out of the business administration budget, so you see a big difference. But that's the reasoning why these are showing 0 for last year and these down here are less, because in this transition year, you would really have to add them up to see what the difference is. Now, luckily going into next year, these won't be zeros, these amounts will be moved over and we'll have a more accurate representation. But that's just one of the negatives of having to go to a new system, but I think this system has so many pluses that it's worth it. So I just want to bring that up again, because we have mentioned that every night to try to ward off some questions that might come up from someone new who might be joining us.
Trying to see, I don't see anything else other than those items. Other contractual services went from 587,000 down to 137,000, reduction of 450,000.
Yeah, crossing guard.
That's the crossing guards.
Yeah, I don't think the crossing guards were entered into there, and nor were they entered in under the revenue side. The only other significant change to our expenses is going to be in our vehicles. 2020, we had $120,000 budgeted for the purchase of 3 police vehicles. In 2021, we're not going to have any of those expenses.
All right, is that the conclusion of your presentation?
Yes.
I don't have any further questions. I will just comment briefly again that while there is a potential reduction of 9 officers, 7 of those officers of those positions are not filled at this time. So we're not really seeing a reduction of our current staffing. We're seeing a reduction in budget numbers. 2 of those other individuals will be retiring in the coming year. So no existing individuals will be losing their jobs. And I repeat, we will be going for, and we expect to receive the COPS grant that would bring 5 more individuals onto the police force, 5 more officers onto the police force, thus increasing by 3 from what our current number of officers is currently on the street. So we will not be seeing any reduction from our current ability to address the crime in the city of York.
That is correct, Mayor. We are currently sitting at 93 officers on the books, with much less than that currently operational. So as we move several officers from field training status into full operation, as well as hopefully get a few back that are on some long-term extended leave, we are very capable of providing the same, if not better, services moving into 2021 while we're at that 91 budgeted officers. As we hopefully do move into getting an award through the COPS grant, we can make use of those officers and do some really exciting things.
Thank you. Those are all my comments and questions regarding the budget. Budget team, do we have any additional questions?
Yes, I had a couple questions. So you made mention that there's going to be some changes, or there's some new and upcoming things with GBI. Where does the contractual agreements that we have for GBI, where does that fall in the budget?
Currently, GVI is funded completely outside of taxpayer revenue. So we have grants that we were using to pay for our contractual services with the National Network of Safe Communities,
Mm-hmm.
as well as grant revenue that is used to fund the position for our civilian GVI coordinator. In addition to several other equipment items were purchased in regard to GVI. We just this week submitted for a new grant that would cover for the next 2 years of our GVI contract as well as salary civilian GVI coordinator.
Okay, yes, I understand that they're covered by grants, but so the expenses still are just, where's that throughout the budget? Even though it's covered, the revenue's covering the expenses. Is it separated or is it buried within these line items? I guess is my question.
It's buried within those line items and then reimbursed.
Is there a way for us to tell how much, to be able to look at what costs are covered and to break that apart?
Not by looking just at the budget as it's shown here, no.
Is that something that you can provide?
Yes, I can provide a grant budget for the grant that we just ran through the course and a month ago.
Okay, thank you. And Captain Letzel, if you don't know who I am, I'm the city controller. So I am a city elected official. So if you send that, you can send that to my city email.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I help answer this question?
Thank you.
Madam Controller,
Controller.
I'm sorry, it's been a long day. One of the things that with our service, e-civic service, that's breaking down the grants by budget. So if you give us, maybe I will help. Captain Lightsell does keep great records, but that's a report that we can pull for you if you would like.
Yes, please. That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions from community members?
We have, I wasn't, well, did you say community members, Mayor? Your mic.
You did indeed, sir.
Okay. We have 2 hands. Ryan, you may go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, Ryan, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Most of my questions were answered. I'm curious about, this is reflecting a reduction in staff, but yet there's increases in supplies and materials like food, ammunitions, weapons, clothing, uniforms. I was just curious about that.
That's a very good.
So despite there being a reduction in actual manpower, many of those other costs still increase from year to year and still do require us to go through the same motions and expend a lot of the same materials, despite there being potentially a few less actual people that need to, for example, weapons and ammunition. Having a few less officers that need to qualify really isn't going to put a big dent in the amount of ammunition that we're going to need to qualify all of those officers. And with the costs of that ammunition rising, from year to year, that's why you would see a slight increase in those areas. Now, weapons and ammunition covers more than just, guns and bullets. It also covers our less lethal equipment, like our tasers and things like that.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Kurt. You may go ahead.
Hey, Kurt.
Hey, good evening, guys. I had a couple questions. My first question being, I seen an expense that was for the pension, $6 million. Now, is that from the retired officers that actually they get a raise every time that the active officers get a raise? Does that not help it?
I'll defer to the budget team.
Tom, are you available, or Tom or Kim, to explain the contract with the retirees?
Yes, the retirees receive a 2.5% cost of living adjustment every year. That's the majority of the retirees. There are a few that receive a variable rate, which may be, which is less than the 2.5%. And that was an agreement reached with the FOP in, I believe, in 2015 when we were negotiating their contract. And that was to defer the layoff of about 30 some odd officers, if I remember correctly. And the other portion of that pension, that is primarily the minimum municipal obligation, which is for active officers. And that's calculated by our actuary, and that is based on officers' salaries.
Okay, thank you. My next question would be, I seen that there's it's a $19 million loss, I guess, for the proposed budget for 2020. I feel like that's a lot of money for a department. I do support police, but I do feel like that's too much. Would there be, this is just me just thinking, would it be possible to maybe like collab with the York County sheriffs, and maybe they can take some of that budget off of us?
I can't speak too much to it, and there are those that were here for longer than I that might be able to, but the sheriffs perform different roles in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania than police officers do.
That's correct, and I'm a little confused.
About the 19
Yeah,
million.
where are you getting your numbers?
That's the total cost of the department. When he says loss, I think he means expenses.
No, that's the net when you subtract the 20.3 million from the revenue.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that is what I meant.
1.1.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah. When you subtract your revenue from when you subtract your expenses from your revenue, it ends up costing the taxpayers over $19 million for your service.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay, I just feel like with all this stuff going on with the wastewater treatment plant, I feel like this department is taking most of the money from the taxpayers and the general fund.
And as it always has, and as it always likely will, the safety of the community is a mandate by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for third-class cities. So particularly the two departments that you will hear from tonight are both mandated by the municipal code and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The wastewater treatment plant is not mandated. Providing services are, but not having them owned by the Commonwealth of or by the city of York. So these are things that we are required by law to provide.
Oh, definitely. I definitely support fire and police. Don't get me wrong. It's just I feel like getting rid of something that actually makes the city money is also important too. But thank you guys for your time. Thank you.
It's quite arguable whether or not the wastewater treatment plant makes us any money, particularly as we look at the mandated improvements that are coming down on the city of York by the York County or the York City Sewer Authority.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
We have one more. They're coming up as Galaxy A21. So Galaxy, you may unmute.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Hey, how you doing? Just want to thank you guys for the platform. Also, want to take the time to congratulate Mr. Muldrow on your position. It's well deserved. No problem, man. I have a question. Well, I have a few questions. I'm pretty sure you guys know that by now. The part-time positions that are being laid off, are they all occupied? And if they are not, which ones are or aren't?
They are presently occupied.
Okay, thank you. And the 9 positions, I know the mayor gave me the information yesterday and told me that 7 of them weren't occupied. What, if anything, was done with the money that was allocated for those 7 officers that weren't working?
I think I can answer that. The city lost $3 million in 2020 due to COVID, lost the revenue. So anything that looks like money wasn't used is really money that was never there. And we just, we've tried, as you're aware, we've used different tactics to try and make up for the major loss of money, equal to about 15% of our total property tax revenue. So not filling those positions was one of the actions to try and offset the major loss of revenue.
Okay, so the taxes that come in 2020, like the taxes that are coming in now, or whatever's being paid out, is that what we go into 2021 with as a budget?
No, sir. That is part of the 2020 budget.
Okay, so this is proposed. Okay, I got you.
So I don't know if you heard at the very beginning of the hearing tonight, I read off all of the expected losses. We expect to lose about $2 million more due to COVID losses, businesses closing, people being laid off. We expect to lose about $2 million more in 2021. We lost $3 million in 2020.
Okay, understood. Yeah, it's tough times. My next question is for Commissioner Muldrow. I know you're new to this. I just want to ask because this is your position. As far as the police in the future, are we looking to maybe put people to maybe walk the neighborhoods and talk to the citizens and maybe build some type of rapport? Because I know myself, I just see, and I could be wrong, I just see policemen just driving around. I mean, I know they're doing their jobs, but there's no interaction. There's nothing there. There's no relationship within the community. It's just kind of like a 9 to 5. I come in, I punch in, I leave. I punch out and leave. That's what it feels like to me. So I'm just curious, is that something you guys are looking into in the future?
I want to, and I'm going to try to reserve some of my excitement here because you asking me that question is confirmation that as a department, we're on the right track. I've been on now for a little over 2 weeks. And in the course of that 2 weeks, I have myself gotten out and have been doing walk-in patrols in the neighborhoods in the evening. I've been all across town now on different days, hitting the neighborhoods. And I will tell you this, that because I believe in, if I'm going to be a leader and I'm going to try to lead us towards some change, I need to model those expectations. And I will honestly tell you that only the first night, and I've been out on the 600 block of West Princeton Street, I've been out on Pine Street, Parkway, Maple and Duke. I've been all over town. I've been trying to be strategic about it. And in all the nights that I've been out, only the first day was the only day that I was actually alone. Every other night, once officers have seen me hitting the street and hitting neighborhoods and walking the block. They have actually been, it's been like a catalyst. It's been infectious, and officers have begun to hit the street and walk and do foot patrols. And some come with me. Some are calling out other places once I've gotten out there. It's the reason why I've been posting it on Facebook, because I'm excited about it. And you will absolutely continue to see myself and our officers and hitting the street and walking. I'm excited because at this point, I've gotten messages from Mayor Helfrich, who's on this call, from Chief Deerdorf, who's on this call, GVI Program Director, Pastor Tyson, neighborhood guys that want to come out with me and walk and be out there. And we're going to continue to do that. And when we're out there, we're walking, we're talking. And I've been stopped by people, stopped by individuals. We've been chit-chatting and talking. And you will absolutely continue to see me and our other guys in the neighborhoods building those relationships, capitalizing on those moments. And at the very least, when we're there, we know that that's an opportunity to promote a positive relationship. And again, nothing bad is going to happen while our officers are standing there. So you are absolutely going to continue to see us out and about walking around in these neighborhoods, because that's who I am. That's who this department used to be. And we're getting back to that.
Well, I thank you for that. I've seen you around before you even got the position. I just feel like that's something that needs to happen within the community, especially in these times with all the movements. I don't want to get into specifics that are going on. The people need to know that the police are here for them, to service them, and not here for other reasons.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that, man. I would like to continue to see that in all neighborhoods, everywhere. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We have any other questions from community members?
I do have a question from Facebook. And
Okay.
At what point can we see diversity training include actual members of the community? With that, making sure it's not only community leaders, but the general inner city members that may come in contact on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you for the question. It's a great question. Again, like I said, it's been about a little over 2 weeks that I've been here, but Mayor Helfrich will also tell you that we've actually already begun that conversation about bringing in that training and bringing in the diversity training and participating in that, even being led by one of our own, because we're actually in conversations with Mark Rhodes, and whoever the caller is there. I'm sure they're very familiar with Mr. Mark from all his years of participating in your youth Little League programming and stuff here in the community, but we're looking to use our own people to help facilitate that training. And that's one of the priorities that myself and Mayor Helfrich have for the department, in addition to additional de-escalation training and a lot of other things that we have coming down the pike. So I value that. I'm glad they asked the question, and I want to make sure they know that that's a priority, and that's a priority that we're going to be delivering on. So thank you again. This is confirmation for me that I'm definitely on the right track.
Thank you, sir.
Cliff, did you have someone else?
Nope, I was just going to say about Facebook.
Oh, okay. All right. Any final questions or comments? Thank you very much, Commissioner and Captain.
Galaxy, which I believe that's Joel, just put his hand back up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I just had a last minute question. Are you guys looking into having police officers and or firemen have to reside in the city at all?
I'll answer that because I think it's more of a political question than a chief's or a commissioner's. The residency for firefighters and police was traded away a long time ago in contracts. This is a contractual thing. We cannot make them do that, I don't believe. We would be found in violation of their contracts. And I have spoken with at least 3 former FOP presidents who have assured me that the FOP would never trade back residency. And please correct me if I'm wrong. Captain Leitzel, you know more about the FOP than I do, but I was told that that is not a thing that would happen. And I believe it was just the last contract with the previous contract with Mayor Bracy that residency for the firefighters was eliminated. And please, gentlemen, if I'm wrong in any of that information, please correct me.
No, you're correct.
And I will say one thing, and I know this, it may not have been exactly what he's looking for, exactly what you're looking for, sir, but I will say this, and I'm excited about this too, and it was one of the first things that Mayor Helford asked me, but at the very least, you get me. So you get me. I mean, I know I'm not 100 guys, but you get me. I'm excited about getting my little place back here in town. So you'll have me. I mean, I've always been here, so it's not really much of a stretch, but I'll be here.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate your answers. I just feel like it'll be a little safe. I would feel a little safer if I knew I had a police officer, a detective, or someone living on my block in my neighborhood that actually has something in the community, like they're invested in the actual community and not, some guys who come from half an hour away and, they play cowboys and Indians and then go back home to their safe community. It's a little different mind frame when you actually live there.
Yeah, I think this is one difficult discussion. And Joel, I've been in the same place and thought the same way as you. And then I had some good sit downs with police officers. And as you can probably imagine, our police officers and firefighters have the most traumatic jobs in the city of York. And while you would appreciate having them on your block 24 hours a day, that also means that they would feel like they were at work 24 hours a day. And at any time, somebody could come to them with the problems of their block. Not to mention, just to have them and their family have a place where they can have downtime and they're not on the clock. So these are the arguments back and forth, and they're good. I think they're both good arguments. I would love to have the police officers living in the city of York. However, having time for them to decompress between the times that they deal with some of the absolute worst trauma in the city of York also makes sense. And when it comes down to the business side of it, we've got contracts, and as Captain Leitzel confirmed, the officers are not going to come back. And Captain Leitzel said it, and 3 other former presidents of the Fraternal Order of Police have confirmed that that is not up for negotiation.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments from any of the teams, elected officials, or community? All right. Thank you.
I just have a quick question. I'm so sorry. With the DOJ and the budget cuts for the state and local law enforcement, how does that impact us?
I'm not sure that it is impacting our direct police department budget. What do you mean specifically by the DOJ cuts?
They just have different cuts to different programs, like their COPS program, different programs like that. So there's just mention of certain grants, things like that. So I didn't know if you guys had a pulse on those different cuts at the DOJ level and how that could potentially impact us.
Well, we are still actively applying for available grants, and I haven't specifically seen a reduction in the amount of grants that we typically do apply for. as the mayor mentioned earlier, we are actively looking at the next COPS grant, which is expected to, I believe the application opens early next year. So
Mhm.
I haven't heard of anything where they were planning on cutting those opportunities, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, and I will share, and I see that our grant coordinator is ready to bring us some information. However, I will share that I met with the top guy in the Department of Justice that actually hands out. He's the one that decides on the COPS grants, and so I met with him in January. I explained to him our situation, and I'm feeling good about us, even if there is a reduction. We have a serious need in the city. A $14 million hole in our budget is absolutely garners us recognition as a distressed city that needs assistance by the Department of Justice.
Madam Controller, could you just reference the first part of your question again, please?
I'm just curious, and again, I'm asking the question, just trying to figure out how this relates to how money flows from the DOJ and down to us as we're applying for grants, as they are looking at budget cuts, how that could potentially impact us. Not necessarily just their cuts, but do we have contingency plans in place that if some of these things that we are forecasting don't come to fruition?
So one of the things about our grant service that we use does more than DOJ. So we are looking at Homeland Security, and we're looking at all of the other ways to complete a grant. So for myself, the way that I work a grant is I do a murder board, which is I see which departments can fit into a problem. So there may be a grant that has a health grant that has for a health clinic, but I know that health clinic will need to be staffed with security. So if I can place a police officer there, those are the kinds of things that I do. So I attempt to make sure that I am looking for the pieces of the puzzle that will make, especially for fire and police and for all of our other agencies, but especially the first responders, where we can plug in the holes with some creative ways to make sure that the money flows, and not just from DOJ, but from Department of Homeland Security, from DHHS, from the President's office. So that's the way that that works. Hopefully that answers the question.
It does. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, last opportunity for questions. Going once, going. Okay, thank you, gentlemen, and Chief Deerdorf, and I always get it wrong. It's Deputy Chief Sleeger, right? There we go. We've got deputy chiefs and assistant chiefs. So I believe the show is yours.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council, residents. Just go over some of our accomplishments from 2020. We did, with the help of our wonderful grants coordinator, receive a grant for $237,000 for training through the Assistance for Fire grant. Which we will discuss a little bit later on in the process, but we have a need for new fire apparatus. So that bid process and specifications were completed this year. Our span of control on the fire grounds were discussed with council and moved forward with the rank and lieutenants. A significant one that we were proud of for this year, we have a significant reduction in our dollar loss for fires for 2020. 2019 was a significant spike due to two large dollar fires that we had in 2019. And 2020, proud to say that our fire loss is down significantly for the year. And some other, looking at different ways to try and reduce some expenses for the fire department and for the city as a whole. We were able to renegotiate with Community Life Team and get a waiver for the remainder of 2020's budget of $100,000, and due to the fact that they are a good community partner with us. Some of our goals for 2021 are, and this goes back to some of the questions asked of the commissioner, and looking forward to working with the commissioner on some of these, was to promote a more diverse department with the assistance of the community itself, increase our presence in the department. We are out quite a bit, but I don't think people know exactly what we do, and we want to explain that and get out and show the community exactly what we do on a day-to-day basis. Continue to search for alternative funding for backup generators for all our fire stations. Obviously we had talked prior to COVID, the rehab of Station 1 with our infrastructure has been depleting over the years. We are looking at different alternative funding sources for that, and to work on our antiquated fire equipment that we currently have, and work with the capital improvement plan that was submitted and projected for moving forward on how we get to where we need to be with our aging fleet. As far as revenue, sorry to say it's not going to increase, but we did not see a significant decrease in any of our revenue items. Our expense items, we saw minor increases. Kim, if you can pop up the sheet for me, please. So a couple to note, we did see a slight increase of about $4,400 in our clothing, shoe, and uniform allowance, and that's an anticipated expense increase every year due to just increase from the vendors. Our vehicle repair line item continues to rise. Like I said, we do have an antiquated fleet. We are over our allotted time and allotted life expectancy on 2 of our apparatus, and quickly coming up on the expected life expectancy time frame for about 3 more. Our SCBAs, they are due to be hydrostatically tested every 5 years. Our first 5-year time frame hits in 2021, so we did see an increase in $4,200 for if you could scroll down a little bit, Kim, it would be machinery line item. You'll see an increase of $4,200 due to the SCBA hydrostatic testing. And as I stated, was in conversations with Community Life Team, and we are pleased to say that they were in agreement to give us a forego the first 6 months of 2021's agreement. So that was another savings of about another $122,500 in contractual services. So that's why you'll see a significant decrease in that line item. Other than that, we maintained as well as we could, with minor decreases in some, minor increases in others. Our radio communications, we were anticipating spending some of that money this year to start replacing our pagers and some of our radios that are coming up with, of course, conveniently just out of warranty, but we're starting to see issues with some of our portable radios. But with the decrease in revenue for 2020, we're going to have to push that over to 2021 and try and get some of those issues taken care of. So 44400 and the other contractual, and again, you'll see that significant decrease, and that's the Community Life Team agreement. Civil service expenses are up about $7,000 due to our captains and assistant chiefs list is expired. and our probationary firefighter list is expired. So we are due to test for all three of them to maintain our annual or our 2-year list for them. So they will all three be tested in 2021. Any questions from Mayor Helfrich or anybody else on, again, ours was pretty much stayed about stagnant from 2020.
Well, I would disagree on it staying stagnant, particularly because of the amazing deal that you worked out with UPMC. Thank you so much, Chief. I think, how much did that save us? 400 and some $1,000 over the next couple of years?
Yeah, it'll be, I could get you the exact number tomorrow. I believe it's right around the 400,000 mark.
But this is another one of these services that are required by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for third-class cities to provide, and that is the ambulance services. And we've been seeing these numbers go up and up over the years, and this was just some really great negotiating on Chief Deerdorf's part. So thank you very much, Chief.
And I'd like to thank Community Life Team as well. They are a valued partner with the City of York, and they truly do value our partnership together. And that is the reason that they opted to go with that negotiations.
Great, thank you. And then we are still on track for the new equipment that will save us some money as well, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we are, the next council meeting, they will be, the presentation will be given for 2 new engines. That'll save, purchasing them now as compared to over the next 2 years will save us over $50,000, with the opportunity for that money going towards further or future equipment. Unfortunately, we know the equipment's not cheap. The National Fire Protection Association standard is 20 years that they are put out of service. And we are at 32 years and 37 years with 2 of our engines that are just well past their life expectancy.
And just for the community's sake, because I recognize that we have no layoffs planned for the fire department. As of, I believe it was 2 years ago, we struck a deal, or maybe it was even earlier in that, but it was brought to my attention that due to the incoming salaries of firefighters being lower than police officers specifically, we would be actually able to save much more money on overtime by fully staffing the fire department. And when we lay off firefighters, it actually costs us money. It costs us more money to lay off a firefighter than it does to keep a full complement of firefighters. Is that the best way to explain that, Chief or Kim?
Yeah, in 2018 was the first year of the contract. So 2017, the union was negotiated with the city, and that was part of the negotiations were that the city residency went to 13 miles for the folks of the department that were affected by it. Anybody hired prior to 2002, I believe it was, had no city residency requirement. Past that, up until 2017 when this was negotiated, now have a 13-mile radius. And one of the things that they did was they lowered the starting salary by about $20,000. And it takes a new firefighter now is at a 5-year step to max out their salary as compared to a 3-year. And they did a really good job with what they were looking for, as far as they wanted to ensure that the city wasn't paying out right off the bat, and that we were able to increase our staffing. And when the budget team sat with us and we talked about the savings that it could cost us, save the city, due to our 10-man minimum contractual obligation of firefighters working at a time, we were spending a significant amount of money in overtime. And I believe, Kim, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 12.5 million over 17 years we're projected to save.
Yeah, I was just trying to bring up the 18 budget, where if we didn't make the changes for the 19, we were looking at a $1.2 million in overtime we are going to have to budget for in order to make sure we met the minimum requirements.
So yeah, it was a win-win for both the firefighters and the city on that most recent contract.
And I should add in there that is true, that there is a minimum requirement for the firefighters that also plays into this. We have to have those firefighters out there based on, I guess, is that a legal decision or?
That was contractual obligation when the previous administration negotiated to take the Fire Prevention Bureau and the inspection program and put that to QDOT. In return, they gave they conceded to a 10-man minimum, which would have been contractually under arbitration. We would have had probably ended up with 12-man minimum and 2 officers working, which would have cost the city, even additional monies.
Wonderful. I have no further questions. Are there any questions from the budget team?
Mayor, I wanted to make note that when you look at the fire budget, it actually, there's a minimal, you see, less than a $2 million increase in expenses, but that includes the fire pension obligation of $4 million. So if it wasn't for that this year, their budget would have actually decreased. And we were anticipating the minimum municipal obligation for the fire pension, and we had been given a reprieve for several years, which I know that you had mentioned before. So I just wanted to point that out, that though it looks like there's a $2 million increase, that 4 million of that is because of the fire pension obligation.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. When we discussed the broader implications of this budget, we have $14 million worth of expenses that we do not have revenue for, and 4 million of that is represented right there in that fire pension. And it was as you put it, a temporary reprieve from that payment, but now all good things do come to an end, and now we are responsible for this $4 million payment. Any questions from budget team? Questions or comments?
Yes, I had a question. Chief Deardorff, did the fire department receive any of the COVID funds that came into the city to cover any of its expenses?
Yes, we had, through the health department, we had reimbursement for a significant amount of our PPE, our personal protective equipment, and some of our overtime that was not necessarily from the health bureau, but we did have roughly 30,000, 30 or 40,000, I can't remember off the top of my head, that we had contractual overtime that was reimbursed back to us from WellSpan for the COVID testing site when we were doing standbys for their testing site out at the fairgrounds.
I'm sorry, can you clarify when you said $40,000 or?
Yeah, 30 or 40,000. I can't remember if it was 30 or 40,000 off the top of my head, but we did receive that reimbursed overtime from WellSpan for doing the standby at their testing site out the fairgrounds.
Okay, so just for PPE equipment and overtime.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know how much that total was?
I do not, because we basically took through our office, because of having Mike Shannabrook through the fire department, we were contributing and distributing PPE throughout the entire city. So all the PPE went through the fire department at that point.
All the PPE went through the fire
Yeah,
department?
we were, because of our contacts and the ability to get PPE, we were purchasing the PPE through the health department grant.
Okay.
And that was for distribution throughout the city. That wasn't just for the fire department.
Okay, so it was going throughout the city. Even we were
Yeah.
purchasing it through the health department grant, but it went to
Yes.
the city. Okay.
Yeah.
Could you get me those totals?
I could check with Melanie and Barb. They would have those numbers more than I would.
Okay, that's fine.
Actually, Barb should have those numbers for what is budgeted. So she would be able to give those to you.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the budget team? City council members? And questions from community members?
I do have one question. Is it possible to go to a volunteer fire department?
We do have volunteers. Our volunteers do contribute quite a bit to us. As the mayor stated earlier, Class 3 city code does dictate some of our personnel, but it is with us reaching the 4,000 a year call volume. We are the busiest department in York County, and one of the smallest geographically area located departments in York County. So we would not have the ability to have an all volunteer department. Our combination department works out well. Our volunteers have supported the fire department and have supported the city for the 26 years that I have been here. And that'll be, there's another contribution that'll be coming to the council meeting next Tuesday for the purchase of the apparatus, where they are going to be contributing about $382,000 towards to help the city with the purchase of the apparatus, which is the most that they can do by law, by the State Relief Association law. So the volunteers that we have are immeasurable. We cannot replace them, but we also cannot anticipate and expect volunteer firefighters to get out of bed or get up and work full-time jobs and still maintain a 4,000 per year call volume.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, if I may, the construction or the layout of the city of York does not provide for much delay in our responses to fires in the city. A couple of minutes can cause things like the 700 block of Chestnut Street that burned. We're very, very close together. We have buildings that are 100 years old or more in many locations, and it really requires an extremely organized and extremely responsive team to protect our city.
And go ahead, Mayor.
I was just going to say that we've looked at some other possibilities in the past. I'm trying to think if I was even on council at that time, that we were looking at trying to combine some services, but what really came out was the response times would be lower. And there was argument about how much lower, but the fact is the response times would be lower if we would be moving to either a joint department with other municipalities or to, well, that was that discussion. But as Chief Deardorff said, we always can use more volunteers, but we can't sustain ourselves with just volunteers.
And just to add a little onto that, Melanie, fire doubles in size typically about every 45 seconds, and our dispatch to on scene time averages between 2 and 2.5 minutes for the first piece. So we significantly reduced that if notified early, we significantly reduce the amount of fire volume on our arrival as compared to, if we had to wait for somebody to respond from home to come in and grab the apparatus and respond. And as the mayor alluded, the construction alone within the city is not designed for extended periods of time where we can have free flow and fire, just due to the void spaces and the type of construction.
No further questions. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
I had a follow-up question, Chief Deardoff. I noticed like with a lot of the different fires that we have around the city, we're calling in like a fire and water mitigation team, C&Z. Do we have a contract with them? I noticed they've been responding to a lot of our buildings.
The restoration teams are solely at the discretion of the homeowners. It is not uncommon anymore for restoration teams to show up. They listen to the scanners. They show up at the scene of a fire. Once we clear the scene return the scene back and the property back to the homeowner, it is completely up to them what route they choose to go with restoration.
Okay, yeah, because I've noticed that C&Z has responded to quite a few, and I believe they did some cleaning for us in our building, in the city building, so that's why I was asking. Yeah,
they do a lot of free gratis for homeowners in the city. For example, the 221 Roosevelt Avenue fire recently, with the property owner being hospitalized, we could not ask her specifically who she wanted. So they, at free gratis to the city and to the homeowner, they did board it up for us to make it safe and to ensure that her remaining property was secured prior to, when she gets out of the hospital.
So you guys did call them in then?
They were at the scene, and we made the call to ask them to board it up.
Oh, okay.
So it does not fall back to the city. Yeah, as far as where they go after that, that's up to the homeowner. We just had them board up the property to secure it, to make it safe for the community and to protect the remaining property of the homeowner.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's what I was driving at. Like, that's the role that you guys are playing, is something like that. They're boarding it up for you. Because I've just noticed a lot of their different signs all throughout the city as fires are happening. C&Z seems to be the only ones responding and boarding things up. So I didn't know if we had a contract of some sort for any services.
No, they were the only ones at that fire. The remainder of them, that's the only one in the last 2 years that I was the chief that we had them actually board something up for us. The remainder are through the property owners.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions out there?
We got Joel would like to speak again. Go
Yes,
ahead.
Joel.
Hello, you hear me?
Yeah, Joel. And how about we consider this the final wrap up comment for the hearings? Okay. So if you have anything to say, bring it to us now.
Okay. Well, I mean, maybe next time I can get on the call too. Just messing around. Curiosity. With the pensions, are they being treated and dealt with the same way as the police pensions, as far as do retirees get raises when the firefighters get raises as well?
Yes, that was a contractual negotiation. At the same time, the police department, the union did negotiate with the city, and ultimately ended up saving a significant amount of money to the city for the MMO by that negotiations and that agreement with the 2.5%.
Let me clarify something. The cost of living adjustments paid to retirees does not impact or have anything to do with the minimum municipal obligation. That's strictly active employees' salaries. That's what that the MMO is based on.
Sorry about that, Tom. I mixed them together, so I apologize for that.
Not a problem.
Oh, so you're speaking on the retirees? They don't get raises as the active members get raises. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Ray?
No, the chief is correct. In the 2018, the contract beginning in 2018, we negotiated, again, another 2.5% cost of living adjustment for all firefighter retirees. And that was basically for some concessions in healthcare costs and retiree healthcare costs.
Okay. And do they also get like a lifetime type health insurance that is paid for by the city or no?
You're talking about retirees?
Yes, sir.
Yes, they're entitled to retiree health insurance, and they have that until they're no longer with us.
Let me, if I could elaborate a little bit on that. We have 3 different retiree health care plans, Joel. One is from 2002 back. We get health care for family members. 2002 to 2018 get it for just the employee. 2018 on, our retirees get no health care.
Okay, thank you. And as far as the new hires, are they getting pensions or are they on 401k?
No, they are on pension.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm. And on that, Joel, the new hires do not get cost of living increase either from 2018 on.
Any other questions, Joel?
I just want to clarify something the chief just said. When he said that new hires get no cost of living adjustment, I think what you're talking about is when they retire under the 2018 contract, then as a retiree, they would not receive any type of cost of living adjustment. But as an active employee, they do get cost of living adjustments per the contract.
Yes, anybody hired from 2018 on as a retiree does not get any cost of living increases.
Okay, thank you. I hope you don't mind. My phone actually messed up during the police. I just had one more question about the police. Is the old commissioner, the one that just left, is he still getting paid, or was his pay cut when he left?
The agreement was that he would get paid through the end of through January 15th.
Okay, thank you. And the vehicles, are they still in service or were they given back?
You're getting into some difficult and kind of complicated things here. The vehicles that were purchased were all approved purchases, and they are being utilized. However, the one vehicle has been traded in to provide us with other vehicles that were more useful. Is that a fair way to say it, Commissioner and Captain?
Yeah, being traded in, but yes, sir.
Okay, in the process of being traded in.
Yeah.
And Mayor, real quick on the other vehicles, those are actually part of the enterprise lease agreement. And we went from Ford Explorers to Chevy Tahoes at a cheaper rate.
Right. Thank you. And Joel, you know how you get a seat here on the screen as you run for office. Seem to be learning a lot about the city budget.
Hey, you never know, man. I appreciate it though. Thank you. Might be the.
All right, any other questions from the community members? I'm going to save my final comments for after anybody else here. Any final comments from the budget team?
Mayor, I just have one brief comment, and I think this is the sentiment of the entire budget team. As you just mentioned, this has been a very difficult budget to draft. None of the budget team members are happy with it, but these are the cards that we've been dealt. So we've presented a balanced budget, and we hope that it turns out better than the way it looks right now.
Are there any other comments from the budget team? Any comments from members of City Council? Any final comments from community members?
Just got one. Ryan, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you to all our city administrators for all the work you do. And thank you for the time taking all these questions from the public. It means a lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for your interest and participation.
And we just got one more. Let's see. Matt, go ahead.
Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to thank you also for this process. It was sobering. I wanted to ask one final question, and that had to do with, I know that Mayor Bracy had looked at doing a commuter tax as a possibility, or some type of a tax to offset a tax increase. Was that ever looked at by your administration?
No, that it was actually, I believe that's the nickname for the distressed pension tax that was increased. Is that correct, Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Yeah, so we did increase that, or it was increased when I was president of council. And so yes, the income tax was raised by 25% for those that work here in the city, and for those that work here in the city.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, did you have something more specific? I know there's some nuances to that.
I'm good, Mayor.
If you live in Dover, you are already paying more than the 1.25. So you didn't actually pay in if you live in Dover. I think there's another school district. It's all based on the school districts that you live in on how this all works.
Yeah, Mayor, the only clarification you might want to make is that they earned income tax for distressed pension cannot be used to supplement the general fund. It's basically additional revenue revenue to be paid into the pension to help offset the pension deficit.
And I think just to be a little more clear, most of it can't be used, right? Is there not a tiny portion that can be used once we reach that level?
A small portion.
A small portion, correct. But yeah, it's nothing that's going to be changing our budget. So thanks, Matt. Yes, we have already utilized that option. Anything else? I guess not. I just saw you
Joel has one more comment.
Okay, Joel, I told you the last one was the last one.
I'm sorry, man. You know I can't let you guys get out of here this early. I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank you guys for giving us this platform. I want to thank the controller for her questions. I want to thank just everybody that came, and I understand it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of hard work. And I appreciate you guys for doing all of this for us. And like I said, just giving us this platform and allowing us to have this conversation. I think it's much needed, and the public needs to see this, as well as the workers and everyone else. So thank you. You guys have a good night, and God bless.
Thanks. Hey, with that, I think it has been clear throughout, or if it hasn't, I will make it clear that the budget team has done something that they haven't wanted to do. Every person on here that spoke has given numbers that they don't really want to see. This isn't what we want to see. I've been quoted as calling this a horrible, horrible budget, and it is. This isn't what I want to see for the city of York. This is what we had to do, given the known circumstances of this day. I am counting on and hoping that these circumstances are going to change before the second meeting of City Council in December. And I'm hoping that the City Council will be patient with us while we wait to hear what kind of offers we get in on the wastewater treatment plant, so we can make, all of us together, the 6 of us, the 5 council members and I, can make a decision based on more information. Because as I said, nobody wants to lay off any employees in the city of York. Nobody wants to raise the taxes or the fees. We don't want anything that we've been talking about we don't want any of the negative stuff that we've been talking about for the last 3 days. And we believe there is a solution. We've been working on that solution since February, I believe. And unfortunately, with the vandalism in the computer systems, we got pushed back. This should have all been wrapped up in October, but it's 2020. And this is what we seem to keep getting, we seem to be dealt. So we're going to keep moving forward and keep accepting reality as it is and trying to make the best of it and make the best decisions that we can. So I hope that, again, I'm looking forward to what we've been calling option B. I want to make it clear, we are putting this option forward because we have to put an option forward by next Tuesday. However, I'm hoping to have something much better to present to council by mid-December. I know it's unorthodox, but these are unorthodox times and we're dealing with unorthodox situations. So I hope everyone will work together and be patient with us as we deal with the things that are thrown at us. With that, thank you everybody that's been working so hard. Thank you everybody that's asked all the right questions, every question. I think we've gotten every question. If you continue to have questions, I will be presenting this budget, or at least a version of this budget. Now that we've had these hearings, we may make some tweaks before Tuesday, but generally a version of this budget will be presented on Tuesday. And I'm sure that our elected officials are open to your comments. I know my office is, whether it be the other elected officials or members of the community. So please feel free to continue to work with us on this budget as we try and do better for York City. With that, I will close the 2021 budget hearings of the City of York. Thank you, everybody.